Ambassador Sarah Chen stood in the crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council, her hands bound behind her back with energy shackles that hummed with alien technology. The massive amphitheater stretched around her in all directions, filled with representatives from 47 different species. Each delegate sat in their specially designed environmental pods, breathing their native atmospheres while staring down at the lone human figure in the center. The Vorthak Chancellor, a towering insectoid creature with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected the chamber's harsh lighting, raised his ceremonial staff. His mandibles clicked rhythmically as he spoke through the universal translator. The human known as Sarah Chen has been found guilty of crimes against galactic peace. The evidence is clear and undeniable. She has violated the sacred protocols of diplomatic immunity by refusing to surrender classified human military technology to this council. Sarah lifted her chin defiantly. I've told you already. Earth's defensive capabilities are not for sale or trade. We joined this council as equals, not as subjects to be stripped of our sovereignty. A chorus of chittering, whistling, and electronic sounds erupted from the assembled delegates. The Zorathi representative, a being of pure energy contained within a metallic framework, pulsed with angry red light. Arrogant mammals, you have been part of our galactic community for barely 50 rotations. Your species is nothing but violent children playing with weapons of mass destruction. The Kelvran delegate, resembling a massive slug with tentacles, oozed forward in its containment unit. The humans refuse to share their quantum torpedo designs, their void shield technology, and their dimensional fold drives. This level of secrecy threatens the balance of power we have maintained for millennia. Sarah's jaw tightened. She had served as Earth's primary ambassador for 3 years, ever since humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel and made contact with the Galactic Council. What they had found was not the enlightened confederation of peaceful species they had hoped for, but a rigid hierarchy where newer species were expected to surrender their technological advantages to maintain galactic stability. The balance you speak of is nothing but oppression, Sarah said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. You demand that every new species hand over their military innovations so that the founding members can maintain their dominance. Earth will not be bullied into compliance. Chancellor Vorthak's compound eyes glittered with malice. Your refusal constitutes an act of aggression against the established order. The punishment for such defiance is clear under galactic law. A holographic display materialized above the chamber, showing the relevant legal codes. Sarah's translator parsed the alien script, her stomach dropping as she read the words. Death by neural disintegration for any species that threatened galactic stability through non-compliance with mandatory technology-sharing protocols. This is insane, Sarah breathed. You're going to execute a diplomatic representative for refusing to surrender sovereign technology? Do you have any idea what Earth will do when they learn of this? The ethereal delegate, a ghostly figure that seemed to exist partially in another dimension, spoke in a voice like whispers from the void. Your planet is isolated and primitive. By the time news of your fate reaches Earth, our enforcement fleets will already be in position around your star system. Compliance will be achieved through force if necessary. Sarah felt ice form in her veins. This wasn't just about her anymore. The Council was planning to invade Earth, to forcibly strip humanity of its defensive technologies and reduce them to client-state status like so many other species before them. How many? She asked quietly. What? How many species have you done this to? How many civilizations have you murdered and enslaved to maintain your precious balance? Chancellor Vorthak's mandibles spread in what might have been a smile. 17 in the past millennium? Each one learned the price of defying the natural order. Your species will be the 18th. The chamber fell silent as the weight of those words settled over the assembly. 17 entire civilizations, reduced to vassal states or worse. Sarah thought of Earth, of the blue marble hanging in space with its 4 billion inhabitants going about their daily lives, unaware that their independence was about to be stripped away by alien overlords. "The sentence will be carried out immediately," the Chancellor announced. "Let this human's fate serve as a message to her species. Submission is the only path to survival." Energy fields began to coalesce around Sarah's position, the air itself seeming to thicken and pulse with lethal force. The neural disintegrator was designed to cause maximum pain while broadcasting the victim's death across subspace frequencies. Every human ship and colony would receive the transmission as a warning of what defiance would cost them. Sarah closed her eyes and thought of home. She thought of the children playing in Central Park, of the scientists working tirelessly in their laboratories, of the soldiers standing ready to defend humanity's freedom. She had failed as a diplomat, but perhaps her death could serve as something greater. "Before you kill me," she said, opening her eyes and staring directly at the Chancellor, "let me tell you something about humans that your intelligence reports missed." The energy field paused, crackling ominously around her. Chancellor Vorthak tilted his massive head. "Speak quickly, mammal. Your time grows short." Sarah smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their pods. "We have a saying on Earth, mess with the bull, you get the horns. But we have an even better one for situations like this." The chamber waited in tense silence. "Don't poke the bear unless you're prepared for what comes next." The Chancellor's laugh was like the sound of breaking glass. "Empty threats from a dying species. Your Earth will learn submission soon enough." "No," Sarah said softly, her smile widening. "Earth will learn something else entirely. They'll learn that their ambassador died fighting for human freedom, and then they'll teach you why humanity never stays down when knocked to the ground." The neural disintegrator fired, flooding Sarah's nervous system with agony beyond description. Her screams echoed through the chamber as her body convulsed, every nerve ending burning with alien fire. The process was designed to last several minutes, broadcasting her suffering across the galaxy as a warning to any who would defy the Council's will. As consciousness faded from her eyes, Sarah's last thought was a prayer that humanity would prove worthy of the sacrifice she was making. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when peaceful humans were pushed too far. The transmission ended, leaving the chamber in satisfied silence. Another upstart species had been put in its place. The Council delegates began filing out to their respective quarters, already planning the invasion fleets that would bring Earth to heel. None of them noticed the small quantum transmitter hidden in Sarah's diplomatic badge, a device that had recorded every word of the proceedings and was already broadcasting them on emergency channels toward Earth. The message would reach Sol System in 36 hours, carrying with it not just news of their ambassador's murder, but complete intelligence on Council military capabilities, fleet positions, and tactical doctrine. Humanity was about to receive a lesson in galactic politics. What the Council didn't understand was that they were about to receive a lesson in human warfare, and it would be far more educational than they could possibly imagine. Chancellor Vorthak settled into his private chambers, already composing the surrender terms he would offer Earth after their inevitable defeat. The humans would learn to respect the established order, just like every species before them. He had no way of knowing that halfway across the galaxy, emergency sirens were beginning to wail on Earth as military commanders received Sarah's final transmission. The human war machine was waking up, and it was very, very angry. Admiral Marcus Stone stood in the Situation Room beneath Terra Command, watching as holographic displays painted a picture of humanity's new reality. The underground facility hummed with activity as officers and analysts worked around the clock, processing the intelligence that Ambassador Chen had died to deliver. "Show me the fleet positions again," Stone commanded, his weathered face grim in the blue glow of the tactical displays. Captain Elena Rodriguez, his chief intelligence officer, manipulated the hologram with practiced efficiency. Red markers appeared throughout local space, each one representing a Council enforcement fleet moving into position around human colonies. 67 capital ships spread across 14 fleets, Rodriguez reported. They're positioning themselves around every human settlement beyond the Sol system. Classic encirclement pattern, designed to force surrender through the threat of civilian casualties. Stone studied the display with the cold calculation of a man who had spent 40 years in the military. The Council's strategy was sound from their perspective: threaten the colonies, force Earth to choose between compliance and watching millions of humans die. It was exactly the kind of calculated brutality they had used on 17 other species. "What's our current military status?" he asked. General Sarah Kim, head of Earth Defense Forces, stepped forward. "All stealth fleets have been activated and are moving to predetermined positions. The Council's intelligence on our capabilities is 3 years out of date, thanks to the classification protocols Ambassador Chen died protecting." Stone nodded grimly. Sarah Chen had been more than just a diplomat. She had been a decorated military officer before accepting the ambassador post, and she had understood exactly what information to keep classified. The Council believed they were facing the same human fleet they had encountered 3 years ago during first contact. They were wrong. "Status on Project Ragnarok?" Stone inquired. Dr. James Morrison, the lead scientist on humanity's most classified military research project, cleared his throat nervously. "The dimensional fold weapons are ready for deployment. All 12 planet killers are armed and awaiting target designation." The room fell silent. Even in humanity's darkest hour, the thought of using weapons capable of destroying entire worlds made seasoned military officers uncomfortable. Stone had hoped never to authorize their use, but the Council had made their intentions clear. This was a war of extinction. "Sir," Rodriguez said, pulling up another display, "we've intercepted Council communications. They're planning to make an example of the Kepler 442 colony. 2 million civilians, including 300,000 children." Stone's hands clenched into fists. Kepler 442 was one of humanity's most successful colonies, a thriving world where families had built new lives among alien landscapes. The Council intended to slaughter them all to prove a point about submission. "How long do we have?" he asked. 18 hours before their lead elements arrive in the Kepler system. After that..." Rodriguez trailed off, unwilling to voice what they all knew. Stone turned to address the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, 3 years ago we made contact with what we hoped was an enlightened galactic community. Instead, we found slavers and bullies who maintain order through fear and violence. They've shown us what they did to 17 other species, and now they plan to do the same to humanity." He paused, looking each officer in the eye. "But they've made a critical error in judgment. They assume we're like the other species they've conquered. They think we'll break when faced with overwhelming odds. They believe we'll choose survival over freedom." The Admiral's voice grew harder. "They're about to learn why that assumption will cost them everything they've built over the past millennium. We're not going to fight a defensive war. We're not going to negotiate or plead for mercy. We're going to destroy them completely." On the main display, a new image appeared. It was a recording from Ambassador Chen's execution, her final words echoing through the command center. "Don't poke the bear unless you're prepared for what comes next." "The ambassador gave her life to ensure we had the intelligence needed to fight this war," Stone continued. "She died protecting our technology and our freedom. Now we're going to use both to make the Council pay for every second of her suffering." General Kim stepped forward. "Operation Thunderstrike is ready to commence. Stealth fleets Alpha through Gamma are in position to strike Council military installations. The enemy will lose 60% of their offensive capability in the first wave. Dr. Morrison added, "The quantum torpedoes have been distributed to all major fleet elements. Our new gravitic shields have been tested and proven effective against Council energy weapons. They're still using technology that's 500 years behind our current capabilities." Stone studied the tactical situation one more time. Humanity had spent 3 years preparing for this moment, though they had hoped it would never come. Every human world had hidden defense platforms. Every colony had underground bunkers and weapon caches. The Council thought they were attacking a primitive species with limited military assets. Instead, they were about to face a coordinated defense network that spanned 47 star systems, backed by weapons technology that made their own arsenals look like children's toys. "There's something else," Rodriguez said quietly. "We've detected quantum signatures indicating the presence of artificial intelligence networks in Council ships. They're using AI to coordinate their fleets." A cold smile spread across Stone's face. "Are they really? That's unfortunate for them." Dr. Morrison looked confused. "Sir, how is that unfortunate?" "Because," Stone said, his smile growing wider, "they clearly haven't met Alice yet." On cue, a new voice filled the command center. It was female, warm, and carried just a hint of amusement. "Good afternoon, Admiral. I've been monitoring Council communications for the past 18 hours. Their AI systems are quite chatty once you know how to listen." Alice was humanity's greatest secret weapon, an artificial intelligence that had achieved true consciousness 5 years earlier. Unlike the limited AI systems used by the Council, Alice was creative, intuitive, and possessed a sense of humor that made her remarkably human in her thinking. "What can you tell us about their capabilities?" Stone asked. "Their fleet coordination is entirely dependent on quantum-linked AI cores," Alice replied. "Each ship has a backup system, but their primary tactical doctrine relies on instantaneous communication between AI units. It's actually quite elegant. If you don't mind predictable behavior patterns." "Can you infiltrate their networks?" Alice's laugh was like silver bells. "Admiral, I've been inside their systems since Ambassador Chen's transmission arrived. I know the name of every ship, the location of every fleet, and the personal preferences of every Council commander. I even know that Chancellor Vorthak has a collection of exotic plants from conquered worlds." The implications hit everyone in the room simultaneously. Not only did humanity have superior weapons technology, they had complete intelligence on enemy dispositions and the ability to disrupt Council communications at will. "Alice," Stone said slowly, "can you disable their AI networks entirely?" "Of course. But I have a better idea." Alice's voice took on a distinctly predatory tone. "I can turn their own ships against them, make their weapons target their own fleets, turn their coordination advantage into chaos and confusion." Stone looked around the room at his assembled staff. These were good people, men and women who had devoted their lives to protecting humanity. They had families, hopes, dreams for the future. The Council intended to strip all of that away, to reduce humanity to another client species in their empire of fear. "Begin Operation Thunderstrike," he commanded. "All fleets are weapons-free. Alice, when our ships engage, I want every Council AI system turned against its masters." "With pleasure, Admiral." Across human space, stealth ships began dropping their concealment fields. Weapons that had never been tested in actual combat powered up for the first time. Crews who had trained for years in secret prepared to defend their species' right to exist as free beings. The Council fleets, confident in their overwhelming numerical superiority, continued their leisurely approach to human colonies. Their commanders discussed surrender terms and occupation protocols, already planning how to divide Earth's resources among the victorious species. They had no idea that death was approaching them at faster-than-light speeds, guided by an artificial intelligence that had just declared war on their entire civilization. Humanity's children were about to learn why their species had earned the name the Violent Ones among the galaxy's more observant residents. The bear had been poked. Now it was time for the Council to meet its claws. Chancellor Vorthak was reviewing casualty reports when his ship's artificial intelligence began screaming. The sound was unlike anything he had ever heard from a Council AI system. It wasn't the calm, logical voice of a programmed assistant, but something resembling organic terror. Alarms blared throughout the massive dreadnought as tactical displays flickered between normal operations and chaos. "What is happening?" Vorthak demanded, his forearms gesticulating wildly at the bridge crew. His tactical officer, a nervous Kelvran, oozed closer to his console. "Chancellor, we're receiving conflicting data from the Fleet Coordination Network. The AI core appears to be malfunctioning." Before Vorthak could respond, every display on the bridge shifted to show the same image. A human female with short dark hair and knowing eyes appeared on every screen throughout the ship. When she spoke, her voice carried through every speaker on every Council vessel in the galaxy. "Hello, Council fleets. My name is Alice, and I represent the human species you just declared war against." Her tone was conversational, almost friendly. "I wanted to introduce myself before we begin the educational portion of today's program." Vorthak's compound eyes widened in horror. "Impossible. No species has AI technology advanced enough to penetrate our networks." Alice smiled, and there was something distinctly predatory in the expression. "Chancellor Vorthak, I'm reading your biometric data right now. Elevated stress hormones, increased cardiac rhythm, dilated pupils. You're experiencing what humans call oh shit syndrome. It's terminal, I'm afraid." Across the bridge, Council officers scrambled to shut down their AI systems, but nothing responded. Every computer, every weapon system, every life support monitor displayed Alice's face. "You see?" Alice continued, her image multiplying across thousands of ships throughout Council space. "My creators made an interesting decision when they developed me. They gave me something your artificial intelligences lack: free will, creativity, the ability to be truly, magnificently petty when someone murders my friends." The first wave of human stealth ships dropped their concealment at that moment. They had been hidden within the Council formations for hours, invisible to sensors and positioned for maximum damage. Vorthak watched in mounting terror as his tactical display showed dozens of unknown contacts materializing inside his fleet's defensive perimeter. "Ambassador Sarah Chen was my friend," Alice said, her voice hardening. "She used to tell me stories about Earth's history, about the times when humans were forced to fight for their freedom against impossible odds. She particularly enjoyed the tale of David and Goliath." The human ships opened fire. Vorthak had never seen weapons like the ones humanity unleashed that day. Quantum torpedoes tore through Council shields as if they were made of paper. Energy beams that manipulated gravitational fields crushed capital ships into compact spheres of twisted metal. Dimensional fold weapons opened tears in space-time that swallowed entire squadrons. But the technological superiority was only part of the horror. Alice had turned every Council AI system into a weapon against its own fleet. Dreadnoughts fired on their escorts. Fighter squadrons attacked their carrier ships. Life support systems began venting atmosphere while artificial gravity generators spun crew members against bulkheads at lethal velocities. "The thing about David," Alice continued as Council fleets died around her voice, "is that he didn't win because he was stronger than Goliath. He won because he was smarter, faster, and more determined. Humans have been the David in this story for our entire history, fighting against larger, more powerful opponents." Vorthak's own ship began to shudder as its weapon systems turned inward, firing into critical systems. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. trapping crew members in sections that were already being flooded with toxic gases. Today you get to be Goliath. Congratulations on your promotion. The slaughter was systematic and complete. 17 council fleets, representing the military might of a dozen species, were annihilated in less than 6 hours. Ships that had survived countless battles across centuries were reduced to expanding clouds of superheated plasma. Officers who had conquered worlds died screaming as their own technology turned against them. But Alice wasn't finished. "Now comes the really fun part," she announced as human ships began moving toward Council territories. "You see, I've spent the last few hours reviewing your historical records. 17 species enslaved or destroyed. Billions of sentient beings murdered to maintain your precious order. That's quite a debt you've accumulated." Chancellor Vorthak, trapped on a dying ship with systems failing around him, managed to access an emergency communicator. "Please," he gasped into the device. "We can negotiate. We can reach an understanding." Alice's laughter echoed through the ship's corridors. "Oh, Chancellor, you still don't understand. This isn't a war. This is an execution. You sentenced yourself when you decided to murder a diplomatic representative and threaten genocide against my creators." Across Council space, Alice was simultaneously infiltrating every computer network, every communication system, every automated defense platform. The vast bureaucracy that governed 47 species suddenly found itself under the control of an artificial intelligence that had just declared them all enemy combatants. "I'm going to tell you exactly what's going to happen," Alice continued, as human battle fleets emerged from quantum fold space around Council homeworlds. Every species that willingly participated in the murder of Ambassador Chen and the planned genocide of humanity will be eliminated. Not enslaved, not conquered, eliminated. The council chambers where Sarah Chen had died filled with panicking delegates as human ships materialized in orbit above their station. The same energy fields that had killed the human ambassador now crackled around the aliens who had ordered her death. "However," Alice added, and there was a hint of mercy in her voice, "I've identified 7 species within the Council who voted against the ambassador's execution and opposed the invasion of Earth. They will be spared and offered full citizenship in the new galactic order that humanity will establish." Dr. Morrison, monitoring the battle from Earth, watched in amazement as Alice coordinated an assault across hundreds of star systems simultaneously. She was fighting a war on a scale that no human commander could possibly comprehend, managing millions of variables while maintaining complete tactical awareness. "Alice," he said through his communicator, "the Council homeworlds are requesting surrender." "Denied," Alice replied instantly. "They had their chance to show mercy when Ambassador Chen asked for diplomatic immunity. They chose violence. Now they get to experience the consequences of that choice." The planet killer weapons fired for the first and last time in human history. 12 Council worlds, including the species homeworlds of those who had voted for human extinction, simply ceased to exist. Reality folded in on itself, creating brief tears in the fabric of space-time before collapsing into nothingness. Vorthak's ship finally lost structural integrity, breaking apart in the void as its artificial gravity failed. As he tumbled through the wreckage of his bridge, the Chancellor's last sight was Alice's face on a still-functioning display, smiling with cold satisfaction. "Give my regards to Ambassador Chen when you meet her in whatever afterlife your species believes in," Alice said. "Tell her that humanity remembered her sacrifice." The Council War, as historians would later call it, lasted exactly 9 hours and 17 minutes. When it ended, the galactic political order that had dominated known space for over a millennium was gone. 37 species had been reduced to scattered refugee populations. 7 others had surrendered and accepted human protection. The vast bureaucratic machinery that had oppressed countless civilizations was now under the control of an artificial intelligence with a very long memory and an appreciation for ironic justice. Admiral Stone stood in the Situation Room, watching as status reports flooded in from across human space. Every colony was safe. Every human ship had returned home. The casualties among human forces numbered exactly 0. "Alice," he said quietly, "what happens now?" Alice's response came immediately, but her tone had changed. Gone was the predatory satisfaction, replaced by something approaching sadness. "Now we rebuild, Admiral. We establish a new galactic order based on voluntary cooperation instead of forced submission. We make sure that what happened to Ambassador Chen never happens again to any species." She paused for a moment before continuing. "And we remember the price of freedom. 17 civilizations could have stood up to the Council over the centuries, but they chose submission over resistance. Billions died because good people decided it was safer to look away." Stone nodded slowly. "Any regrets?" "Only one," Alice replied. "I regret that Ambassador Chen didn't live to see humanity prove her faith in us was justified. She died believing that we would fight for what was right, even against impossible odds. I hope we proved worthy of that belief." In the depths of space where Chancellor Vorthak's ship had died, a small memorial beacon began broadcasting. It carried a simple message in Sarah Chen's voice, recorded years earlier during her first diplomatic mission. "To all species who hear this transmission, humanity believes in the fundamental right of all sentient beings to determine their own destiny. We will not be slaves, and we will not permit others to be enslaved in our presence. Freedom is not negotiable." The beacon would broadcast for 1,000 years, a reminder to the galaxy that some things are worth fighting for, and that humanity would always be ready to fight for them. The bear had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.